Hey guys, and welcome back to another edition of Kicks to Rankings. So today we're going to be talking about sitcoms, and I'm going to be giving you my countdown of top 10 sitcoms. I'm going to start from 10 and work my way through to 1 with some honorable mentions thrown in the mix too, but I just want to make it clear is that this is my top 10 rankings of the sitcoms that I have seen. Obviously, I have not seen every sitcom in history, so I can only rank the ones that I have seen, but I've seen some of the best ones, and so I think this is going to be a pretty comprehensive list, but I will definitely give some honorable mentions in there. And so yeah, let's get started. Starting off in 10th place is Mr. Bean. So Mr. Bean is a fantastic show. It's crazy to think that there's only really 14 episodes, I believe, in all of existence, obviously not including the movies, but I think it feels like there's a lot more to them because within each episode there's usually about 3 or 4 skits that he would do, so it felt like there's a lot more than 14 episodes, but really there's only 14 episodes of the entire show. But it's a phenomenal thing, and it's solely built on Rowan Atkinson and essentially his face and his physical sense of humor. Like it's a one-man show. It's all about him. He's absolutely hilarious in it. And Mr. Bean really is this kind of transcendent character and show that just transcends all cultures, nationalities, languages. You don't need to know English at all to appreciate Mr. Bean. He is beloved worldwide. And yeah, the show is phenomenal. And so yeah, Mr. Bean in 10th place. In 9th place is 2.5 Men. I want to be clear here, this is just seasons 1 to 8 with Charlie Sheen. Once Ashton Kutcher came on board, that show dropped off a cliff, but the first 8 seasons are fantastic. It's a really great dynamic you have with Charlie and Alan and Jake in the house. It's a really unique kind of scenario, but it really plays out really well, and Charlie Sheen is simply hilarious as basically playing himself, this debaucherous kind of guy that just hooks up with girls and lives a crazy lifestyle and all of that. And just the contrast with his brother, who's a loser and is always down on his luck. It's fantastic stuff. And Jake as well, on top of it, is just like this little idiot, dumb kid who just says these stupid one-liners all the time. But the show on top of it actually has a heart to it. I like when it comes back to those more like kind of hearty moments where often Charlie has to come through for Alan, even though he despises him and gets annoyed with him a lot of the time. At the end of the day, Charlie has a big heart and he's always there for his brother, and I really like that. And so yeah, 2.5 Men in 9th place. In 8th place is The King of Queens. This might be a surprising one because a lot of people kind of regard the show as a really dumb and stupid sitcom. And yes, whilst it has its share of dumb humor within the show, with Kevin James predominantly in the lead role, there are some really fantastic episodes here, and I really connect to the show on a personal level. His character Doug is very much a homebody kind of guy who just loves to, after work, come home, just relax in front of the TVs, have a drink, loves to eat, loves his food obviously, but he obviously has this awkward scenario where he has his wife and then her wife's dad who lives with them, who is a crazy old man. And so there's a unique kind of dynamic there, which is really fun to play with throughout the show. And yeah, the show really is kind of a hidden gem, if you ask me. A lot of people kind of sleep on this show. I think a lot of people at the time looked at Everybody Loves Raymond as the more kind of superior one, and that may be the case, but that said, I think there is a lot of great stuff in the show. I watched it all the way through many times, and it is a lot of fun. I love the physical sense of humor that Kevin James brings to the role, and obviously Jerry Stiller, God rest his soul, as Arthur Spooner is simply hilarious. That same rage that he has as Frank Costanza in Seinfeld, he brings to this role, but with this added sort of quirkiness because he's a more main character, so you get to see him doing his thing more, which is fantastic. And even Leah Remini as the main female lead, she's great too. She can be hilarious at times as well. And there's a great ensemble cast around them. All of Doug's friends in the show are hilarious in different ways. And there's some really classic moments throughout the show all the way through. So yeah, I love The King of Queens. I'm not ashamed to say that. So yeah, 8th place. In 7th place is Fawlty Towers, starring John Cleese. This show, much like Mr. Bean as well, only has a select few episodes. I believe it's like 12 or 14 or something like that. Not much to go around, but it is phenomenal. It is a hilarious show. If you have not watched it, I really implore you to do so. It is hilarious. It's set in the 70s. The couple that owns a bed and breakfast, and just constant mayhem breaks out within the hotel that they're always trying to contain and to fight with and contend with and all of that. And John Cleese is hilarious in the role. It's a great show. I love the setting that it's a bed and breakfast, and the main owner is his name's Basil Fawlty, and he just is enraged by his own customers all the time and getting into fights with them. It's simply hilarious stuff. yeah, like I said, I can't believe it's only 12 episodes. There's just so much to look back on with that show when you think about it. But yeah, it's another hidden gem if you don't know your English comedy, but I implore you to watch it. So yeah, Faulty Towers in 7th place. In 6th place is Frasier. So this is out of all the sitcoms that you're going to find on this list, I'd say this one's probably the most sort of highbrow. Is it highbrow for the more kind of intelligent humor? It is very much in that class. You've got Frasier, who's obviously a psychiatrist. His brother's a psychiatrist, so they very much have this kind of very witty sense of humor throughout the show, and it's hilarious to see the dynamic that they have together, let alone the dynamic that they have with their dad, who's much more old school, much more of the everyman kind of thing. And then you throw in Daphne into the mix, who's the physiotherapist for the dad, and there's a whole great ensemble cast here that work at Frasier's radio station, who work with them. It's a hilarious group of people, and yeah, it's a really great show, and it has a really great story throughout. You see Frasier's journey, like trying to find love. You see Niles' journey trying to, find love with Daphne, who he's head over heels for. So it's a really great show. And even the revival that they did recently with just Frasier, with a new season, new cast and everything like that, I thought that was kind of half decent too. But I'm really more so focusing on the main run of the show. And to think of the fact that this was actually a spin-off of Cheers is really amazing. You can't think of too many spin-offs of really successful shows that go on to be pretty much just as successful in their own regard. So yeah, Frasier to me is a phenomenal show, and I've put it in 6th place. In 5th place, we have the first and only animation on the list, and that is of course The Simpsons. So to narrow it down here, The Simpsons now is somewhere in the mid-30s in terms of seasons, but I'm really narrowing it down to like the first 10 to 12 seasons, which if you isolate just that group of seasons, you're looking at arguably the greatest show of all time, like up against any other show you want to put it up against. But look, I'm not going to focus on all these other later ones that are not as good. That first roughly 10 seasons of the show are pure genius. The way that The Simpsons was able to play on themes of what's going on in the real world and integrate it into their own show, into the show about this family, this kind of nuclear family with a bumbling dad and the kids and the wife, all these things to deal with. But I just love when The Simpsons was at its best was when it was drawing on themes from relevant things going on in the world of today and just integrating it into their own stories. I could give you a million examples, but I'm not going to go into them today. But yeah, The Simpsons is really, it is an absolute stroke of genius. No matter whether you're a fan of the show or you're not, if you've never watched an episode, you have to appreciate the staying power of The Simpsons is simply due to its genius conception, how it came to be. And yeah, it's a hilarious show on top of that. The humor always hits, particularly in those earlier seasons. And it's so clever and witty. It's really easy to get caught up in kind of the dumb sort of humor that you see with the likes of Homer, but there's some really quick-witted one-liners coming from all of the range of characters in the show. And yeah, the Simpsons is simply phenomenal. And so yeah, I have it in 5th place. In 4th place is The Office, the US version, I should clarify. This show I really discovered later on, like really kind of towards the end of its original run, I guess. And I came to absolutely become obsessed with this show. I fell in love with it. It was the first kind of show that I ever seen of that format where it's, you have a handheld camera and it's and the camera's actually there. It's supposed to be a documentary filming real people. Obviously it's not real, but it's Steve Carell in the main role of Michael Scott. I can't say enough. He is absolutely hilarious, but perhaps one of my favorite individual characters within any sitcom ever. Along with that, you've obviously got Dwight, you have Jim, Andy, all these hilarious characters. Huge ensemble cast we're talking about with this show, but all of them phenomenal in their own regards. They really created iconic characters for themselves. And yeah, that format of the handheld and the way they use the camera angles to really use that as a tool for generating laughs, because obviously there's no laugh track in this show, so if you realize when you watch shows with laugh tracks, you're often laughing along with the laugh track, but if it's not there, you don't feel yourself laughing along as much. But so this show very much has to rely on its own content, its own comedy to generate the laughs, and it does it all the time. So it's an amazing show. Highly recommend it. And there's even a great love story in it too between Jim and Pam. It spans all of the seasons and it always grows and develops. So yeah, The Office for me in 4th place. So we're down to the top three now, and these top three have really kind of encompassed my overall love of sitcoms. These are the main three that really have spanned my whole life to this point as to why I love sitcoms so much. And in third place is Everybody Loves Raymond. This one's really close to my heart because I share a lot in common with Raymond with the show. You know, I am the younger of two brothers. I come from an ethnic background family. You know, I am married and my brother is not, and all that this, and I even have family members that are very similar to the parents, the grandparents, I should say, Frank and Marie. So there's a lot. I have a lot in common with Raymond in the show, and the humor in it is fantastic. I relate so much to the way Ray is, particularly with his wife and the whole cast that he has to deal with, all of the family members all of the time, and having to kind of be the moderator for them all, to manage them all the time. It's really great stuff, and it's a hilarious show from start to finish. Doesn't have too much doesn't really have a storyline that spans throughout the seasons or the series. It really is just kind of one episode at a time. Sometimes things are connected or have a longer drawn out story, but there's no real long thread in it like a Friends or talking about other shows like Frasier or anything like that. It really just kind of develops as it goes along, and it is a phenomenal show. So Everybody Loves Raymond in third place. In second place, some of you may have guessed this one, some of you may have not, but that is Friends. So Friends to me is the quintessential sitcom. When we all think of sitcoms, I think most of us will think of Friends as that template. You know, obviously they really overly popularized that idea of a group of friends sitting around an apartment, talking about their life, talking about their relationships. That's the bread and butter of sitcoms, and that's why Friends has had this staying power like no other sitcom really, and why it's honestly grown in popularity over the years. I feel like now, 20 years since it's been done, it's arguably more popular than ever. And I mean, the show just deals with such universal themes, universal like kind of experiences that we all go through. The idea of dating, meeting people, falling in love, having kids, all of these really basic things, but it just takes them in so many different directions and gives us so many laughs in the process, and brings so much heart to it as well. I mean, there's whichever character is your favorite, you can take something from a particular character to kind of to feed your needs for whatever day might be, whether you're feeling sad, whether you're feeling happy, whether you're feeling angry. There's a character for you that you can relate to at any given moment. And having the three male or three females, I mean, it seems so simple, but it really was a stroke of genius when you look back on it to see just how what it turned into, really, this phenomenon. So yeah, Friends to me it's my second favorite, but I can see why it is the most popular show, a sitcom of all time. And yeah, so I have Friends in second place. Before I reveal my number one pick, I want to go through some honorable mentions. Some really great sitcoms in here, but unfortunately didn't make my top 10. Starting off, we got Married with Children. Like, this was a classic back in the day, the kind of show that would not get made anymore, particularly when you think of some of the jokes that the main character Al Bundy used to tell. I mean, just go check out a full clip of Al Bundy's best moments on YouTube, and it's just hilarious. And then likes of shows like Malcolm in the Middle were also really great. I really loved them, particularly as a kid. Even a lesser known one like Just Shoot Me, that was a really great show too, starring David Spade, kind of a comedy set in like a sitcom based at a magazine company. Other picks were The Cosby Show. I know this one's kind of a controversial one because of Bill Cosby, his past and all that now, but look, just in isolation, I used to watch that show as a kid, and it was a great show, a really great show that really taught some really important family values. And another one is Brooklyn Nine-Nine. And Brooklyn Nine-Nine is kind of along the Office lines of Parks and Rec, where it has that handheld camera effect. It's not a mockumentary, but it does have that same kind of aesthetic to it, and it's about a police precinct essentially, and they're going on. So that was a really funny show too. So those are just some honorable mentions. Obviously, there's the likes of shows like Cheers and MASH, which I understand were huge at their time. I unfortunately didn't watch them. I've only seen an episode or two here and there, so I cannot add them to my list, but I'll take it at their word that those were great shows. They were very influential, obviously, but they're not in my top 10 list, obviously, because I haven't seen them. And so from now, we're just going to move on to number one. And so in first place is... You heard it, Seinfeld. So Seinfeld to me, since before I can even remember, was always in my life. Like, it was just this hilarious sitcom that as I grew older, I learned to appreciate more and more and more in different ways. You know, as a kid, you see it more for the kind of more of the physical humor, more of like what Kramer kind of brings to the table. But then as you grow older, you learn to appreciate like Jerry and George more. You know, Jerry for his sarcasm, and then George for his neuroticism, and even the likes of Elaine. Like, whilst Elaine to me is like the least funny of the four, she's still hilarious in different ways to them, and you learn to appreciate them more, especially as you get older. And you know, every episode, much like as I mentioned earlier with The Simpsons, the Seinfeld was unique in how it could play off of current day themes or what was popular in the zeitgeist or current day movies or current day politics, whatever was going on at the time. It expertly drew from each of them to create episodes that alluded to them or referenced them in subtle ways, not sometimes more overt and sometimes more subtle. Like, they really balanced it well at times, and they made it hilarious in the process. And it was just a really genius writing, you know, between mainly Jerry Seinfeld and obviously Larry David. You know, it simply cannot be replicated what they were able to do with that show. You know, that show really had a bunch of lives before it really got going. It wasn't an overnight success. You know, the pilot came along, it was lukewarm response, and then a few episodes came in, it was still lukewarm, but it was just building and building an audience very slowly until it eventually took off. And yeah, and to me, it took off to a point of becoming the greatest sitcom of all time. Like, it really set the tone. You know, we talk about Friends being known as the group setting that example for a group of friends hanging around an apartment. Well, Seinfeld was doing that first. And while Seinfeld wasn't the first sitcom to do it, it was definitely the first one to gain widespread fame in doing so, and then obviously led to all these other shows since, including Friends. So Friends owes a lot to Seinfeld in terms of what it was able to achieve on its own. But Seinfeld, whilst I acknowledge, doesn't quite have that same global appeal as Friends does, I still believe it is far superior. And while Friends is like your comfort food in the sense that it's like a McDonald's, it's fast food, it's good, tastes great, it's so easy to consume. Seinfeld's a little bit more higher quality than that, a little bit more expensive. It's a little bit more finer tuned and all of those things. So it's a little more higher brow and a bit not as easy for everyone to take in the style of humor. But if you do manage to get it, it is the best sitcom of all time, hands down. So there you have it, guys. That's my list. Seinfeld #1 in first place as the greatest sitcom of all time. I'd love to hear your thoughts. What do you think of your favorite sitcoms in like order from 10 through to 1? I'd love to hear them all in the comment section below. If you agree with mine, disagree, if there's other shows that I've completely missed, I'd love to hear them all. If you've enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to my channel, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye.